Hello and welcome to the Camo Grind, a series where I analyze every weapon in Advanced Warfare to help you complete every camo challenge by giving specific strategies, loadouts, and more, including ranking every weapon variant in order of usefulness based on several factors to give you an idea of what you should use and what you should redeem. I don't, however, just make this stuff up. My advice and opinions are based on thorough testing, in-game coded stats, and of course my own experiences in using these weapons and weapon variants, of which I own many, to complete every marksman challenge and earn every royalty camo. Today's episode is on the AK-12 as chosen by you guys, the viewers. Whichever weapon is most suggested will be the one we cover next. The AK-12 is a very different weapon from the last few we've covered. This will be the first time since the Battle 27 introduction episode that the variant ranking spreadsheet will actually be useful. So let's jump into that. Now, of course, I did base these on a lot of factual things like the coded stats, the times to kill at all ranges, and of course my own testing and playtime experience. But at the end of the day, these are opinions. Depending on playstyle, I might like something and hate something else, while for you it's the opposite. So overall, I think it's a pretty solid guide, but don't take this as fact. Use it as just that, a guide, and you can decide for yourself what you like and don't like. For the AK-12, no surprise here, I have the R.I.P as the #1 variant. It has that damage increase that brings the long-range damage, or the minimum damage, from 24 to 25, making the AK-12 a 4-shot kill at every range, not counting wall penetration. Everyone likes a damage buff, and because there is no real damage drop-off there, yes, it does go from 33 to 28 to 25, but all of those result in a 4-shot kill, so you can use a suppressor on this weapon with no real penalty. Who cares about lowering your range if every range is essentially the same, which is great if you want to go stealthy. And the R.I.P also has a negative 20% view kick, as if the AK-12 wasn't already accurate enough, you'll have no problem hitting your shots with this gun. A foregrip is basically a wasted attachment. You're going to want that attachment slot for something else we're going to see here. The biggest negative is the magazine size reduction, going from 30 to 22. Big difference there. 22 shots goes very quickly at 750 RPM. I would definitely recommend extended mags to counter that. The only other downside to this weapon is quite minor. It has a 10% ADS time penalty, but the quick draw grip is a great attachment for all assault rifles, and it counters that nerf very well. I'm sure many of you already know the R.I.P is a top tier weapon though. Now we come to one of the biggest reasons this video was so high up on the list of episodes, the mystery surrounding the hair trigger variant. Looking at the in-game stats, this has the potential to be the best AK-12 variant, maybe even beating out the R.I.P, because the AK-12 is already so accurate and has a good damage profile, so you really want to increase that fire rate to make it better. But rapid fire isn't available for assault rifles, of course, and the hair trigger is the only AK-12 variant that increases the fire rate. But you may have heard that it isn't that simple because of frame rounding. Many people will tell you that it's useless on current gen consoles, usually useless on last gen consoles because of the variable frame rate, but a good variant on PC. To briefly explain frame rounding, don't waste much time because I'm guessing if you're the kind of person who's looking up this kind of Call of Duty stat guide, you probably already know all about it. But basically, because of the engine Call of Duty has been using up until this point, time in the Call of Duty universe is based on not seconds, but your frame rate. So many aspects of the game are calculated around your FPS, and when you're limited to 60 FPS, that can create some strange rounding errors and make the coded fire rate numbers that you can see on stat charts usually not that accurate. So all that being said, should you use the hair trigger? Well, that does depend on where you play. Most videos I've seen say it's outright bad unless it's on PC, but from my testing and what I've read, that just isn't correct. I play on PS4 and I've always thought the hair trigger was firing faster, but in fairness, the sounds and visual effects are misleading, keep that in mind. Even on Xbox One, it sounds and looks like the hair trigger is firing faster, but it isn't. You may have seen this GIF or video that demonstrates that. Even though the hair trigger looks and sounds faster, both it and the base variant MTA magazine in the same time. However, people see this thing and lump the two current gen consoles together when in reality, the PS4 actually does operate differently. Even though the video is displayed at 60 FPS on your screen, the PS4 has some kind of internal FPS that it uses to make game calculations, and so frame rounding behaves differently between PS4 and Xbox. I couldn't do very intensive testing, unfortunately. I deleted my hair trigger variant that I once had long ago to make room for other stuff, but I did find one on the ground in this game and fired off some shots right before it ended. Not the best test, but good enough to get some results, and sure enough, comparing the time it took to fire 25 shots in my tiny test,
the hair trigger did fire about 8.7% faster. And if you think this test was kind of bad, well, other people have done similar tests, of course. I'm not the only one in the world who has made this discovery, and I'm not pretending to be. The information rather just seems somewhat underrepresented in videos. I haven't seen anyone relay this information. Most people who perhaps did their testing on Xbox One arrive at the conclusion that frame rounding makes this weapon bad, and that it is bad on all consoles. Well, not quite the case. I'll point to another test done by Redditor Proteins247, and they also found that the hair trigger undisputably fires faster by about 8.8%. Obviously not the coded fire rates, but definitely noticeable and helpful. So in summary, the hair trigger variant with a grip could prove to be one of, if not the best, AK-12 variant if you're on PS4 or PC. But on other consoles, that's where it'll probably not help you, and you'll only be getting that accuracy penalty for no purpose. Now that was the biggest reason for making this video, correcting the miss there. Hopefully I'm not wrong, you can let me know if so. I can't test on other consoles unfortunately, but these seem to be the facts as I see them. So, with the hair trigger out of the way, I expect the rest of this video to be fairly straightforward. The AK-12 Grenadier is here as the third variant, not because of the attached grenade launcher. Noob tubes in this game aren't all that great because of all the movement ability, and ever since Modern Warfare 2 and its stupid, crazy, strong grenade launchers creating the term noob tube, they've been pretty careful with these things. I will say, with danger close, the grenade launchers are actually pretty viable in certain objective game modes, but it would be blasphemy for me to encourage anyone to use this thing, so I won't. But this variant is third because it literally has no downside. You get a free attachment that you can choose to make use of or not, and 10% better hip spread. That's it. The only reason that you would ever not use this variant is if you have a better variant, or if you really want to use 2 or 3 of your own attachments, because while the grenade launcher is free, it does take up an attachment spot. Otherwise, there is no disadvantage to using this variant whatsoever. You just get better hipfire. Now the Feeder, Lance, Fingertrap Elite, and of course the G variant, which has slightly better iron sights but is otherwise cosmetic, I have here as variants that I think are more positive than negative, and I'd recommend using them. I won't waste time explaining every single one. Instead, if you disagree with the position of one of these, feel free to leave a comment and I'll explain my reasoning and thought process behind placing it there. After all, I could be wrong or am missing something. But here we are at the base AK-12, so everything after this, while they do still have pros and cons, I think the cons outweigh the pros, and I don't recommend using them at all. I think you can just redeem them for XP. Same thing as before though, I won't explain them all, but if you disagree with something here, like you really like one of these things, and you want to take it up with me, I do encourage you to do so. I will point out the AK-12 Bleeder though, because it does feature a +2 damage, -2 fire rate. That damage increase makes some people wonder if maybe it's a good variant, because damage is very appealing. I would go with definitely no. All the damage buff does is brings the mid-range damage from 28 to 33 to match the close-range damage, and the long-range damage from 24 to 28 to match the previous mid-range damage. These damage values are certainly better than the R.I.P. and are the highest of all AK-12s, but they still have no real practical effect. Even with those higher numbers, those are all still 4-shot kills, and that -2 fire rate really is noticeable on all systems, frame running aside, making the time to kill the slowest of all AK-12s, so I would definitely stay away from that variant. Well, that's my opinion on the variants of the AK-12. Hopefully that helps you decide what you want to use. Now we move on to the camo challenges themselves. This is of course called the camo grind, after all, but like we said at the beginning, this video focuses less on the challenges and more on the variants. Since the AK-12 is such a strong weapon, the challenges are not that challenging. The long shots just take time, although there is a certain strategy to it. It's all about locations, maps, and playstyle. I did make a guide on this once, and it's a pretty old video now, but it is still valid. You can watch that for extra long shot help. Headshots are straightforward, you'll get them over time. Strafe medals are also pretty simple, just follow the advice of House of Pain and jump around. Bloodthirsties shouldn't be much trouble with the AK-12, just play conservatively if you need to. If you boost around a lot, you should get the kills after dodging without thinking about it, and these last two for carbon fiber and gold are always simple. Just spend some time without attachments and perks, and that's all there is to it. You'll have your diamond AK in no time. And that about wraps up the challenge guide portion for the AK-12. Not much to say there. Shouldn't be much trouble at all compared to other weapons. Once again, this episode was made before other stuff like the NA-45 and the MK-14 in order to clear up the misconceptions surrounding the hair trigger variant. Next episode, we'll be taking a look at the NA-45 grenade sniper rifle due to your suggestions. a lot of people seem to be having trouble with that one. I actually quite enjoyed it, so we'll see if I can be of assistance. If you have a specific weapon or two you'd like to see covered either for the camo device or the variant ranking, don't hesitate to suggest it and I'll add it to the list. If I see multiple people requesting one thing, the priority on that weapon will just get bumped up, and that's how we will choose what weapon will be next. So I hope you are more knowledgeable about the AK-12 now than you were 10 minutes ago, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.